The underestimated threat. The Supreme Council of the Zarkadian Empire gathered in their grand orbital chamber, holographic displays showing the systems they had conquered over the past 3 centuries. The Empire controlled over 2,000 star systems, their vast fleets enforcing their will across a significant portion of the Orion Arm. Earth, a small blue planet in what they considered an unremarkable system, had finally caught their attention. These humans think they can challenge us. Grand Admiral Vextor's deep voice resonated through the chamber. They've barely managed interplanetary travel within their own system, and now they claim to have ships that can rival our star destroyers. The gathered council members, all tall blue-scaled humanoids with prominent crests, erupted in laughter. Reports from their intelligence network had indicated that Earth was developing some kind of prototype vessel, something the humans claimed would revolutionize space warfare. To the Zarkadians, this was nothing but the desperate posturing of a species afraid of being conquered. Their entire planetary defense system consists of primitive orbital platforms, Science Director Kelnar scoffed, bringing up a 3-dimensional model of Earth's defenses. Their weapons use rudimentary kinetic and nuclear technologies, nothing that our shields cannot withstand. The Supreme Leader, High Marshal Zarvek, raised a hand to silence the chamber. Though he shared his council's amusement, caution had kept the Empire alive for millennia. "Send a diplomatic envoy," he declared. "Let us hear what these humans have to say before we decide whether to integrate or subjugate them." What the Zarkadians didn't know was that Earth had been preparing for this moment for decades. After first contact 60 years ago, humanity had realized the galaxy was far more dangerous than they had imagined. Nations had set aside their differences, pooling resources and intellect to develop technologies that could protect their homeworld. Deep beneath the lunar surface, in a facility known only to a handful of Earth's leaders, Dr. Elena Reyes looked up at the prototype vessel suspended in the vast hangar. The EDS Phoenix didn't look impressive by conventional standards. No massive guns protruding from its hull, no imposing silhouette like the Zarkadian warships. Instead, it was sleek, almost delicate in appearance, its obsidian hull seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. "How much longer until we're operational?" asked Admiral James Chen, the head of Earth Defense Command. "The quantum drive is fully integrated," Elena replied, checking her tablet. "The phase shields are operational, and the adaptive hull integrity is at 97%. We're just calibrating the Immerse system, the nonlinear energy manipulation and emission system for interception and strike." Immerse was the heart of the Phoenix. It wasn't a traditional weapon. It was something entirely new, something the galaxy had never seen. "Will it work against their shields?" Chen's question betrayed his anxiety. Elena nodded. "In theory. Their shield technology relies on deflecting conventional energy. Nemesis doesn't emit conventional energy." 3 days later, the Zarkadian diplomatic vessel, the Emissary, arrived in Earth orbit. The meeting was held aboard the International Space Station, which had been expanded over decades into a proper diplomatic outpost. The Zarkadian ambassador, Lordak, towered over the human delegates. His expression was one of barely concealed disdain as he delivered his message. "The Zarkadian Empire extends an offer of protection to your world," he announced. "In return, we require access to your resources and the integration of your population into our labor distribution networks." Secretary General Maya Okafor of the United Earth Government didn't flinch. "We appreciate your offer, Ambassador, but Earth is not seeking protectorate status. We propose instead a treaty of mutual recognition and non-aggression." Lordak's crest flared in surprise, followed by amusement. "I'm afraid you misunderstand, Secretary General. This is not a negotiation between equals. The Empire has designated your system for integration. We are merely offering you the courtesy of a peaceful transition. And if we refuse," the ambassador's expression hardened, "then we will be forced to demonstrate why it would be unwise to resist the Empire. You have 3 of your Earth days to reconsider." As the Zarkadian delegation departed, Admiral Chen turned to Maya. "That went about as expected." "Yes," she agreed. "Inform Lunar Command. It's time to deploy the Phoenix." When the Zarkadian battle group arrived 3 days later, it was an impressive display of force. 12 massive warships, each capable of reducing a city to ash within minutes. The emissary had rejoined the fleet, positioned safely behind the main battle line. From the command bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought Sovereign Might, Fleet Commander Drazkar watched with anticipation as his ships moved into position around Earth. "No sign of surrender, Commander," his communications officer reported. Drazkar nodded, unsurprised. "Begin the demonstration. Target their largest orbital platform." As the Sovereign Might's main batteries charge, sensors detected a small vessel emerging from behind Earth's moon. "Commander, unknown craft approaching," the sensor officer reported, sounding perplexed. "It's small, barely the size of a scout ship." Drazkar laughed. "Is this their response? One tiny vessel?" He turned to his weapons officer. "Ignore it. Continue targeting the orbital platform." The Phoenix accelerated toward the Zarkadian fleet, its quantum drive allowing it to move with a speed that confused the Empire's tracking systems. Aboard the prototype, Captain Sarah Lynn and her small crew of 10 operated in focused silence. "Nisius system online," reported Lieutenant Marcus Williams. "Targeting solution acquired. All systems green," confirmed Lieutenant Commander Hiroshi Tanaka. "Phase shields holding stable." Sarah took a deep breath. "Commence Operation Thunderbolt." The Phoenix darted between the massive Zarkadian warships, easily evading their targeting systems. The Empire's gunners, trained to hit large or predictable targets, found themselves unable to lock onto the agile Earth vessel. "What is happening?" Drazkar demanded as the Phoenix zoomed past his flagship. "Destroy that insect." "We're trying, Commander," his weapons officer replied, frustration evident. "It's too fast, too maneuverable." Suddenly, the Phoenix halted directly in front of the Sovereign Might, hovering almost tauntingly before the massive dreadnought. Drazkar snarled, "Fire everything." Obliterated. The Sovereign Might's forward batteries unleashed a barrage of energy that should have vaporized the Phoenix instantly. Instead, something extraordinary happened. As the energy beams struck the Earth vessel, they seemed to distort, curve, and then disappear. On the Phoenix, Sarah watched as the Immerse system performed exactly as designed, absorbing the enemy's attack energy, converting it through processes that defied conventional physics, and preparing to release it back in a devastating counterstrike. "Energy absorption complete," Marcus announced. "Immerse is at maximum capacity." Sarah's expression was grim but determined. "Target their primary power core." Fire. From the seemingly insignificant Earth vessel erupted a beam of blinding white energy, not directed at the Sovereign Might's hull, but passing straight through it, as if the massive warship's armor wasn't even there, to strike precisely at its quantum reactor. Aboard the Zarkadian flagship, alarms blared as systems failed across the ship. Drazkar watched in horror as his engineering officer reported the impossible. "Commander, our reactor containment is failing." "The weapon. It bypassed all our defenses." "Evacuate the ship," Drazkar ordered, but it was too late. The Sovereign Might, pride of the Zarkadian fleet, erupted in a spectacular explosion that temporarily outshone Earth's sun. The shockwave rocked the remaining Imperial vessels, causing minor damage to those closest to the flagship. In orbit around Earth, humans watched in awe as humanity's first true demonstration of power in the galactic community unfolded. The Phoenix had just destroyed the most powerful warship in the approaching fleet with a single shot, but the battle was far from over. 11 Zarkadian warships remained, and their commanders, now aware of the threat the small Earth vessel posed, were preparing to coordinate their attack. Admiral Chen, monitoring from Lunar Command, opened a channel to all Earth forces. "The Phoenix has drawn first blood, but this fight is just beginning." All units prepare to engage according to Protocol Omega. The Zarkadians, having lost their flagship and fleet commander, regrouped under the command of Captain Thelzan of the Indomitable Fury. Their mocking laughter had been silenced, replaced by grim determination as they faced a threat they had grossly underestimated. The real battle for Earth's future was about to begin. The Reckoning. All vessels, spread formation Delta. Captain Thelzan commanded from the bridge of the Indomitable Fury. Do not concentrate fire. That's what it wants. Their vessel appears to absorb energy attacks. The remaining Zarkadian warships moved into a dispersed pattern, trying to surround the Phoenix while maintaining distance from each other. If one ship was destroyed, they wouldn't all be caught in the blast radius. Aboard the Phoenix, Captain Sarah Lynn watched the enemy's new formation with a grim smile. They're adapting. Good for them. Multiple targeting locks detected, Marcus warned. They're coordinating their attack patterns. Sarah nodded. Initiate evasive pattern Echo. Charge Immerse to 30%. We don't need to destroy another ship yet. Just demonstrate that we can. The Phoenix darted between the Zarkadian vessels with incredible speed, its quantum drag allowing maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. When the Imperial ships fired, the Earth vessel was already elsewhere, leaving energy beams to pass harmlessly through empty space. Back on Earth, in the United Earth Government's Crisis Command Center, Secretary General Maya Okafor watched the battle unfold via real-time holographic projection. One prototype against 11 warships, she murmured. Even with Immerse, those are difficult odds. The Phoenix wasn't meant to fight the entire fleet alone. Admiral Chen reminded her via a secure channel from Lunar Command. It was designed to demonstrate our capabilities and force a diplomatic resolution. Maya nodded. Open a channel to the Zarkadian fleet. In space, the Phoenix executed a particularly daring maneuver, diving between two Imperial warships and causing them to nearly fire upon each other. As their frustrated gunners recalibrated, the Earth vessel released a controlled Immerse burst, slicing through one ship's propulsion system with surgical precision. The damaged warship began to drift, disabled but not destroyed. Captain Thelzan. Maya's voice echoed through the Imperial communication channels. This is Secretary General Okafor of Earth. You've seen what one of our vessels can do. We have more. We don't wish to destroy your fleet, but we will if necessary. I invite you to reopen diplomatic channels. Thelzan's crest flattened against his skull, a sign of anger among his species. You think one lucky strike and a disabled ship will force the Empire to its knees. We do not negotiate with species who resist integration. Very well, Maya responded calmly. Phoenix, you are authorized for Phase 2. Captain Lin received the authorization with a mixture of anticipation and regret. Acknowledged command. Deploying QEDs. The Phoenix's hull opened in several places, releasing a dozen small drone-like objects that sped toward the Zarkadian vessels. What are those? Thelzan demanded as his sensors detected the new threats. Unknown devices, Captain, his sensor officer replied. They're small, possibly missiles or mines. Destroy them. The Imperial ship's point defense systems activated, energy beams lancing out to intercept the approaching objects. 3 were destroyed, but the rest continued unimpeded, seemingly phasing through the defensive fire. These were quantum entanglement disruptors, QEDs, another revolutionary Earth technology. As they attached themselves to the hulls of 9 Zarkadian warships, they began their work, creating localized fields that interfered with the quantum-level functions of the ship's systems. Aboard the Imperial vessels, chaos erupted. Weapons went offline. Shields flickered and failed. Communication systems emitted only static. Even life support began to falter. What's happening? Thelzan roared as his own ship's systems began to fail one by one. His science officer, voice trembling, offered the only explanation she could. They're somehow disrupting the quantum field that underlies our technology. It's as if as if they're changing the laws of physics in localized areas. On the Phoenix, Sarah watched the Imperial fleet gradually become paralyzed. This was the true power of Earth's breakthrough, not just advanced weapons, but fundamental control over the physical forces that governed reality itself. All QEDs functioning within parameters, Marcus reported. 9 enemy vessels effectively neutralized. And the other 2? Sarah asked. The disabled ship poses no threat. The remaining vessel, the one carrying the diplomatic envoy, was deliberately not targeted. Sarah nodded in approval. Open a channel to Captain Thelzan. On the Indomitable Fury, most systems were now non-functional. Emergency lighting cast an eerie glow over the bridge, where the crew worked frantically to restore power. When Sarah's transmission came through on the emergency channel, Thelzan had no choice but to listen. Captain Thelzan, this is Captain Sarah Lynn of the Earth Defense Ship Phoenix. Your vessels have been neutralized using technology that, as you've discovered, operates on principles your science has not yet mastered. We can maintain this state indefinitely, or we can reverse it. The choice is yours. Thelzan, pride wounded but practical enough to recognize defeat, responded with quiet fury. What are your terms? The same ones we offered initially. Mutual recognition and non-aggression. Earth will not become part of your empire, but we are open to establishing diplomatic and trade relations as equals. There was a long pause before Thelzan replied. I do not have the authority to negotiate such terms. The diplomatic vessel was left operational for a reason. Sarah pointed out. Ambassador Lordak can communicate with your Supreme Council. We will wait. 3 hours later, secured within the diplomatic vessel, Ambassador Lordak faced a holographic projection of Supreme Leader Zarvek and the Empire's High Council. The ambassador had never seen the Supreme Leader look so grave. They could have destroyed our entire battle group, Lordak explained. Instead, they disabled it with technology we cannot comprehend. High Marshal, these humans have mastered manipulation of quantum fields in ways our scientists believe theoretical at best. Zarvek's expression was unreadable. You recommend we accept their terms? I do, Lordak confirmed. Not merely because of this demonstration of force, but because I believe there is much we could learn from them. They've taken a different path in their technological development, one that might complement our own. After a moment of consideration, Zarvek nodded. Very well. Negotiate the treaty. The Zarkadian Empire recognizes Earth as a sovereign power. When the terms were finalized and the treaty signed aboard the International Space Station, the Phoenix deactivated its QEDs, restoring functionality to the Imperial vessels. As a gesture of goodwill, Earth engineers even helped repair the ship that had been damaged during the confrontation. 2 months later, a formal delegation from Earth arrived at the imperial capital of Zar Primus. Dr. Elena Reyes, the genius behind Nemesis, stood beside Secretary General Maya Okafor as they were led into the Supreme Council chamber. High Marshal Zarvek, seeing humans in person for the first time, was struck by how small and physically unimposing they appeared. Yet these were the beings who had forced the mighty Zarkadian Empire to the negotiating table. Secretary General Okafor, he greeted her. The Empire welcomes Earth's delegation. Maya inclined her head respectfully. High Marshal, we look forward to a productive relationship between our civilizations. Later, during the formal reception, Science Director Kelnar approached Dr. Reyes with undisguised curiosity. Your Nemesis system, he began. Our scientists have been theorizing how it functions. The ability to absorb, convert, and redirect energy in such a manner. It defies conventional physics. Elena smiled. That's because we stopped limiting ourselves to conventional physics. After first contact, we realized that the universe operates according to rules far more complex than we had understood. We needed to think differently. And one ship, one prototype, was all you needed to change the balance of power, Kelnar marveled. We had more, Elena admitted. But we hoped one would be sufficient to make our point without unnecessary bloodshed. Across the reception hall, Supreme Leader Zarvek was having a similar conversation with Maya. "You must understand our surprise," he said. "We've encountered thousands of species, integrated hundreds into our empire. None have ever developed technology along the paths you have chosen. Perhaps that's because you've been integrating civilizations before they have the chance to develop independently," Maya suggested. "Diversity of thought leads to innovation. By allowing cultures to find their own solutions, you might discover there are many ways to solve the same problem." Zarvek considered this a provocative idea. "And yet, I cannot help but wonder, why did you not simply conquer us with such power at your disposal?" Maya's expression softened. "Because that's not who we are, High Marshal. Humanity has had its share of conquerors and empires. We've learned that cooperation yields better results than subjugation. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want our place in it." As news of the treaty spread throughout the galaxy, other species took notice. The mighty Zarkadian Empire had been forced to recognize a young civilization as an equal. Diplomatic inquiries from a dozen other spacefaring races arrived at Earth within weeks. The Phoenix, meanwhile, remained in service as both a symbol and a shield. Earth began constructing more vessels incorporating its revolutionary technologies, but never built the massive fleet it could have. Instead, they focused on establishing a new paradigm in galactic politics, one based on cooperation rather than conquest. In the end, it wasn't just Earth's technology that changed the galaxy, but the philosophy behind it. The species that had been laughed at for its primitive ships had demonstrated that true power comes not just from destructive capability, but from how one chooses to use it. And in the Grand Council chambers of the Zarkadian Empire, the laughter had been silenced, replaced by respect for the ingenuity, restraint, and wisdom of humanity.